Joining us, Punchbowl News co-founder and MS Now political contributor Jake Sherman, staff writer for The Atlantic Nick Miroff, and former ICE director Sarah Saldana. I want to start, before we get into the trust level, I want to start with the politics of this and whether this nomination, Jake, is ever even going to make it out of committee. Because the chairman, and we discussed this back when he was nominated, the chairman of the committee, Rand Paul, and Markwayne Mullin have a history. Mullin has called Rand Paul a snake and has said he understood why his neighbor beat him up. Rand Paul got into that with him today. I want to play a little bit of that exchange.
Is that still your opinion, that political disputes can sometimes and often only be resolved by violence?
No, I don't always agree with that. I don't believe in political violence. I've made that very clear. But sometimes people do need, theoretically speaking, sir, I get it. It's about character assassination for you. That's the way this game is played. I understand it. And you are making this about you, which is fine, but that doesn't keep me as Secretary of Homeland Security.
Character assassination when you were the one lauding the assault. Who do you think started that character assassination? I'm just repeating what you have done in character assassination. I'm repeating your support for the assault. So that's somehow something I started?
No, sir. What I'm saying is you're adding a lot to it.
So he broadens this out, Jake, to say that this is about temperament. He also brought up, we played this as well, the exchange he had with the president of the Teamsters, saying that they could go outside and fight during a Senate hearing a few years back. And he was trying to make the point, Rand Paul, that Markwayne Mullin is not the kind of guy that you want at the top of a law enforcement agency that has problems with violence and has problems with the use of force. So can Markwayne Mullin make it out of committee?
Probably, and the only person you need to ask there, Katie, is John Fetterman, who said that he is going to vote. In the past, he said he's going to support Markwayne Mullin, and he's on the committee. And it's very clear to me, absent some reversal that is so obscene that we can't even imagine what it looks like, that Rand Paul's going to vote against him. So if Rand Paul votes against him, he needs John Fetterman. John Fetterman says he's a yes. And he'll probably almost certainly get cleared on the floor. The more interesting thing to me, well, two things. He does run hot, Markwayne Mullin. We know that. Normal people don't say that that they understand why. People with a normal temperament, rather, don't say that they understand why their neighbor assaulted them. That doesn't happen. That's not something you and I hear in everyday interactions with people. And nor do they, threaten to fight someone in the workplace during a congressional hearing. So that does indicate that he does run a little hot. Okay. So the more interesting thing to me is this issue over this foreign trip that he took, where he said it was classified and he signed a non-disclosure agreement. And the committee was like, what are you talking about? We want to know more about this. This all happened when he was a member of Congress. Now, listen. The administration doesn't need to nominate someone impeccable for any role, because the Republicans in the Senate mostly back up the president, almost always back up the president. And furthermore, Markwayne Mullin clearly made the calculus that he doesn't need to assuage Rand Paul. So everyone here everyone's body language here indicates that they believe this nomination is on a glide path. I have no reason to disagree with that assessment, but it does underscore that Mullin is a somewhat unconventional pick for this role and a somewhat controversial pick for this role.
Help me understand the foreign trip and
I don't understand it, Katie.
Answer. What's the question about the foreign trip?
He's been indicating for years that he has been involved with overseas travel, and he talked about the scent of war and everything like that. Markwayne Mullin is not a veteran. He did try to go to Afghanistan to rescue people a couple years ago during the Biden administration. He's not a veteran, but he says he's had these experiences overseas and led people to believe, and the Washington Post did a great story about this morning, led people to believe that he was involved in something. And he today said it was classified, then behind closed doors to senators this afternoon said he had signed an NDA. Listen, I've never heard of senators or members of the House being involved with trips as lawmakers where they're subject to non-disclosure agreements and are involved in anything resembling combat. So I don't know what he's talking about, to be honest with you. And
or if he's just not telling the truth about any overseas travel? Maybe?
I mean, he clearly went overseas as a member of Congress at various points in his career. I don't know what he was up to there, and I think it's fair to say the committee doesn't know what the hell what he's talking about either. So, these are legitimate questions to ask when you're up for a cabinet role. And in normal times, Katie, in normal times, this would be a game changer, right? He wouldn't get confirmed in normal times, right? But these aren't normal times.
Well, I mean, normal times you wouldn't be nominating somebody who threatened to fight somebody on the Senate floor.
Correct.
Let me just play that just so we see it. Let's play this. It's also an exchange with Senator Gary Peters.
So where did you smell war?
Sir, I just said that this was classified. And the dates, locations, and admission, I've never spoke specifically details about.
All right, so strange, but let's move on. Nick, let's talk about the department itself. Do you expect a change in the way the department handles itself and what it focuses on with Markwayne Mullin at the top?
I kind of do. I mean, again, this was a wild hearing today, and there were the two clips that you played were among several sideshows. But in the backdrop, there were some substantive things about the future of DHS, and he took a couple opportunities to signal that he wanted to take things in a different direction from the Kristi Noem regime. He said that in 6 months, he doesn't want DHS and a DHS controversy to be leading the news every day. He also said that he wants, he imagines a role for ICE that is more like a transportation agency, basically going around to jails, and counties that cooperate with ICE to go pick up people that they can deport. That's certainly different from the kind of posture that we saw when they were setting arrest quotas and, going around LA, Chicago, and Minneapolis. He also was asked about ICE's plan to open mega jails across the United States by converting these huge warehouses that Kristi Noem has been purchasing. And he said he needs to do the work to go in and talk to local jurisdictions that have been expressing their opposition to that plan. So that's significant. And then I think the last thing I would just mention is that he said he's going to revoke the policy put in place by Kristi Noem's aide, Corey Lewandowski, that required her approval on any contract over $100,000. And it created a lot of suspicion at the department and, a lot of added bureaucracy. And he said he's going to revoke that.
Yeah, and there was also a question about sanctuary cities and what he would do with the leaders in those places. The administration has been very fiery on sanctuary cities leaders and threatened to revoke federal funding over it. He sounded different, though, Nick, right?
Yeah, the general tone he wanted to strike seemed to be that he wants to go and kind of rebuild relationships, rebuild trust. He said that that even in these jurisdictions that have sanctuary cities, that he recognizes that the leaders, they love the country, they are not unpatriotic, they have a different point of view. So it's a completely different message from the one that we've been hearing from the administration and the department over the last 14 months.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to go over with the administration. ICE, Sarah, we've talked about this a lot. Bad reputation right now. Can it be rehabbed by this change in leadership?
Well, it can, and I agree that the tone of Senator Mullin is striking the right level. It's calm. It's he's not trying to pick a fight with anybody. That all of that is good. The problem I have is that so much damage has been done already. Trust is undermined quickly, but takes an awful long time to rebuild, and that's going to be a problem. I'm also really concerned. Here would have been a moment to say things are going to change, and that is just apologize to those families who were, along with their loved ones who were killed, that they've been suffering so much. Just apologize. What is so difficult about following your retraction with, yes, I'm sorry for all the grief that those families have gone through? That kind of indicates to me that there is something there that is going to it indicates to me that some of the intonation will not continue beyond this hearing.
Well, yeah, so that's my bigger question. There's so little trust between the American public and these nomination hearings because oftentimes the nominees say one thing and they go and they do something completely different. So talk to me, Sarah, about that trust issue.
Well, it's like I mentioned, I think I've said to you before, Katie, that the ICE has never been at the top of my favorite of the country's favorite agencies, but you never had the kind of bullying that you have seen in the last few months. So my point is one way you could have begun to build some trust and show a new side, and that would be to have just said 2 words, "I'm sorry," and then the other way is let's get the agencies funded. If you can't agree on ICE and the things that the Democrats are proposing, and I think there are at least one, the use of masks is going to be a hard hurdle to jump over. But if there is not going to be agreement on ICE anytime soon, take up the offer to fund everybody else. That starts to show that you truly understand that there is a problem when it comes to ICE, and we can work together to do something about this. Other than the political grandstanding, I don't understand why that couldn't be agreed to.